Welcome to Unit 8. We're going to talk about polynomials in Unit 8. 8.1 is just an introduction to what those are. Polynomials are expressions with positive whole number exponents on all the variables. I am going to highlight polynomials because that is a pretty important vocabulary word. Ooh, that did not highlight very well. Sorry. Polynomials. This expression is a polynomial because that exponent is a positive whole number. 7x to the negative third power is not a polynomial because that exponent is negative. In this example, this is a polynomial because 2 is a positive whole number, but this one is not. So even though this part looks like a polynomial, the whole thing is not because that is a decimal and it's not allowed to be. Even if there are multiple variables, there's an x and a y here, as long as they're both positive whole numbers, it counts as a polynomial. Let me remind you that terms are the parts of an expression. Terms are the parts of an expression. So when you classify by terms, you're looking at how many parts it has. That has 2 parts, that has 1, that has 2 parts, that only has 1 because there's not a plus or minus sign in the middle. Classifying polynomials by terms. If it only had one term, then it would look like negative 3x squared, and you would call it a monomial. If it had 2 terms, then it would look like 6x minus 10, because that's 2 different parts, and you would call it a binomial. If it had 3 terms, then it would look something like 5x squared minus 4x plus 2. That has 3 different terms, and it is called a trinomial. We can keep going here forever. The examples are just going to get longer and longer. 4 terms, 6x to the 7th plus 10x to the 3rd minus 3x squared plus 4. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. But we don't care about the names after that point. So I'm putting don't worry about it. You can also classify polynomials by degree. when you classify polynomials by degree, first of all, you need to know that degree is the biggest exponent. I'm going to highlight that vocabulary word also. Degree is the biggest exponent. So first degree would mean that the biggest exponent is 1. So 6x plus 2 is first degree because the exponent on that x is a 1. First degree expressions are called linear. Second degree would mean that the exponent is 2, like negative 4x squared. That is second degree. If you see an x squared as the biggest exponent, you would call that quadratic. Quadratic. Next up is third degree. So something like 5x to the third minus 7. That's third degree because the biggest exponent is 3. We would call that cubic. It can be fourth degree. The biggest exponent is allowed to be 4. Just once again, we're not going to have a name for that. There's an example of an expression like that. There are 2 different exponents, but the biggest one is 4, which makes it fourth degree. Once again, I'm going to write, don't worry about it for the name. Because we're not going to learn the names for that. We're only going to do the names for the first 3 because we're in Algebra 1. Algebra 2, they'll make you worry about that. Remember, degree is the biggest exponent. Terms are the parts of an expression. So we're going to use that knowledge to look at this IXL really quick. Make sure you get started correctly. When you find the degree of the polynomial, degree is the biggest exponent. So that's all we need to look for. The biggest exponent is 2. That's the whole answer. This question is different for you people not reading the questions. It says find the number of terms in this polynomial. You're not going to put 8 because terms are the parts. There are 1, 2, 3 parts. Now we're back to degree. Find the degree of this polynomial. There's 3 different exponents. 9 is the biggest one. Back to terms. These are 2 different terms. So you put 2. This one only has 1 term. Now you have to do them both at the same time. Oh, wow. 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Degree, remember, is biggest exponent, so that's 5. And that's it. How many terms are there? There are 3. What's the degree? On top of that F is also a 3. So both of those answers are 3. How many terms are there? 2. The degree, now be careful here. We've been putting just the first exponent because that's the biggest one, but now the biggest exponent's the second term. Just because of the way that they wrote it, you just need to pay attention to the problem. The degree is 5 in this one. 1 term, degree 8. 1 term. Degree is the exponent. It doesn't look like there is one here, but what exponent can you always put on an x? A 1. So that is the degree. It is first degree. How many terms are there? There are 4. What is the degree? The degree is 3. Number of terms 1, degree 1. Okay, now these are going to start to get tricky. Tricky. They're going to make you use the words. Binomial, monomial, and trinomial. What do those mean? Go back to your notes where we wrote those down at. Monomial, binomial, and trinomial match up with the number of terms. One term is monomial, two terms is binomial, and three terms is a trinomial. So you should be looking at how many terms it has. It has one term, which makes it a monomial. Linear, quadratic, and cubic. Those words are about degree, which is the biggest exponent. That's not about the number of terms. Linear is first degree. Quadratic is second degree. Cubic is third degree. The biggest exponent is 3, so we pick cubic, even though it only has one term. Quadratic, linear, and cubic, those are about degree, which means we need to look at the exponent. The exponent is 1, which means linear. I want you to go ahead and try that iExcel. Let me know if you need help, especially with these questions here at the end.